A mother abandons her newborn triplets in the trash, convinced they would never survive. But fate had other plans. From the stench of the slums to the lights of boardrooms, their journey would shock the world. This is not just a story of survival, it's the rise of three children the world had written off, from forgotten to unforgettable, from trash to billionaires. Like and subscribe, comment where you are watching from, as we dive into this shocking story. The rain came down hard that night, drumming against the rusty rooftops of the slum and turning the dirt roads into rivers of mud. Somewhere in the shadows, a woman staggered through the alley, her body trembling, her face streaked with sweat and tears. Her name was Evelyn. Young, barely in her 20s, she clutched her stomach as the pain tore through her. The contractions had come faster than she expected, and now, beneath the flickering light of a broken street lamp, she gave birth, not to one child, not to two, but three. Triplets! Her cries of pain mixed with the wailing of the newborns, their voices piercing the silent night. For a moment, she stared at them, three tiny lives swaddled in nothing but her torn scarf. Their little fists clenched, their lungs full of desperate life. But Evelyn's heart was not filled with joy. It was fear. She was poor, abandoned by the man who had promised to love her, despised by her own family who cast her out when her belly grew. Now, with three hungry mouths to feed, she felt the crushing weight of hopelessness pressed down on her chest. "What will I do?" she whispered into the rain, her voice breaking. "How can I raise even one, let alone three?" Her hands trembled as she looked around. Behind the old market, she spotted a large metal trash bin, half filled with rotting food and discarded clothes. The thought struck her like a knife, cold, brutal, unshakable. "No one will ever know," she told herself. "They will suffer less this way. I cannot. I cannot." With tears streaming down her cheeks, Evelyn lowered the triplets one by one into the bin. Their cries grew louder, as if they could sense the rejection. She stood there, shivering, staring at the tiny faces that mirrored her own eyes. Her heart screamed at her to stop. To take them back. To hold them. But her mind, heavy with despair, forced her legs to move. She stumbled away into the night, her sobs drowned by the storm. Minutes passed. The babies cried, their fragile voices nearly fading into the darkness. But fate refused to abandon them. An old woman named Mama Rose, returning home late from her small food stall, walked past the alley. At first, she thought the sound was a cat. But as she drew closer, the cries grew sharper, unmistakable. She peered into the trash bin and gasped. "Jesus! Babies?" Her hands shook as she lifted the first, then the second, then the third child into her arms. Rain soaked her clothes, but she didn't care. She pressed them close to her chest, rocking them gently. "Who would do this?" she whispered, her eyes filled with tears. Three angels, left to die in the dirt. With resolve burning in her heart, Mama Rose wrapped them in her shawl and carried them through the storm. She had little money, no husband, and barely enough food for herself, but in that moment, she made a silent vow. "If the world has thrown you away," she whispered to the tiny infants, "then I will pick you up. You are mine now. My children." And so, on a night drenched in sorrow and rain, three abandoned lives were given a second chance, a chance that would one day change the world. Years passed since the stormy night when Mama Rose rescued the three helpless babies from the trash. The world hadn't grown kinder. Her small shack, built from rusty iron sheets and patched wood, creaked in the wind like it was ready to collapse. Inside, she laid out three worn mats on the floor for the children, Daniel, David, and Diana, the names she gave them. They weren't her blood, but she loved them more than life itself. Raising them, however, was a daily war. Mama Rose sold roasted corn by the roadside, standing for hours under the burning sun just to earn a few coins. Some days she barely made enough to buy food. Other days, she returned home empty-handed, praying that water with salt would be enough to trick the children's bellies into silence. "Grandma, I'm hungry," little Diana whispered one night, tugging on Mama Rose's wrapper. Mama Rose swallowed hard, blinking away tears as she forced a smile. "Don't worry, my angel. Tomorrow, we'll eat plenty. You'll see. But tomorrow came, and again, food was scarce. Still, the triplets grew, thin but strong, poor but filled with a strange, unbreakable fire. They learned early that life wasn't fair. Other children mocked them for wearing torn clothes and patched sandals. Teachers looked down on them because they couldn't always afford school fees. Yet, despite everything, the three never lost hope. Daniel, the eldest by a few minutes, was the protector. He always shielded his siblings, stepping in when bullies tried to hurt them. David was the dreamer. While others played, he sketched big houses and cars in the sand, whispering, "One day, we won't live like this. One day, we'll be rich." And Diana, the youngest, was the heart. She comforted Mama Rose when she cried at night, rubbing her back and saying, "Don't worry, Mama. We'll take care of you one day." Despite the hardship, they clung to education as their only escape. At night, under the dim light of a kerosene lamp, the triplets studied with second-hand books Mama Rose had begged from neighbors. Hunger gnawed at their stomachs, but their minds burned with determination. One rainy evening, as the roof leaked and thunder shook the shack, Daniel spoke with fire in his eyes. "We're not going to die poor," he said firmly. "I don't care what it takes. One day, we'll build something big, something so great the world will know our names." His siblings nodded, their small faces lit with belief. Mama Rose, listening from the corner, covered her mouth to hide her tears. That night, as the children drifted into sleep, she whispered a prayer. "God, I may not have given birth to them, but please, bless these children. Let their suffering not be in vain." The wind howled outside, but inside that broken home, a spark had been lit. A spark that, one day, would grow into a fire strong enough to shake the world. By the time the triplets turned 12, the streets had already taught them lessons that most adults never learned. Life in the slums was unforgiving. The smell of sewage lingered in the air, and every corner had its dangers, from gangs to hunger to hopelessness. But Mama Rose's words, whispered every night, stayed with them. "You are not trash. You are treasure. Remember that." Those words became their shield. One Saturday morning, Daniel, David, and Diana left their shack determined to help Mama Rose. Her health was beginning to fail, her once strong hand shook, and her cough grew worse by the day. If they didn't find a way to ease her burden, she might not survive. "Let's find work," Daniel declared. "Anything. We can't let Mama suffer like this." The three wandered through the bustling Lagos streets. Yellow buses blared their horns, hawkers balanced goods on their heads, and the chaos of the city pulsed around them. To many, they were just skinny children in torn clothes. But their eyes burned with hunger, not just for food, but for a future. That day, they found their first chance. At a busy junction, a young man struggled to push his broken-down car out of traffic. Horns blared, curses flew, but no one helped. Without thinking, Daniel ran forward, grabbing the bumper. "David! Diana! Help me push!" The three of them shoved with all their strength. Slowly, the car rolled out of the road. The driver, surprised, wiped his sweaty forehead. "Ah! God bless you children. Nobody even tried to help me." He reached into his pocket and handed them some money, crumpled Naira notes. It wasn't much, but to the triplets, it felt like a treasure chest. That evening, they brought the money to Mama Rose along with bread and beans they had bought. She broke down in tears, hugging them tightly. "My children, you are already making me proud." That moment lit something inside them. If they could earn money helping people, maybe they could do more. The next week, the triplets began looking for odd jobs. They carried loads in the market, fetched water for neighbors, even washed cars for strangers who were willing to give them a chance. Every coin they earned, they brought home. Every coin was proof they could rise above where they started. But it wasn't just about money. With every job, they learned. Daniel learned responsibility, how to talk firmly and gain people's trust. David learned creativity, finding smarter ways to finish tasks quickly. And Diana learned compassion, speaking kindly even when customers were harsh. Together, they were becoming more than survivors. They were slowly turning into visionaries. One evening, after a long day of carrying heavy loads in the market, they sat under a streetlight, eating roasted plantain they had bought with their wages. David broke the silence. "You know what? We can do more than this. One day, we can start something of our own." Daniel looked at him, frowning. "Like what?" David grinned, eyes shining with the fire of a dreamer. "A business. Something big. Bigger than this whole market." Diana laughed softly, but there was belief in her voice. "And when that day comes, people will know the children thrown in the trash didn't stay there." The three of them clinked their pieces of plantain together like a toast, a vow sealed under the dim streetlight. That night, Mama Rose watched them sleep and whispered again into the darkness, "Lord, I think the spark has begun." And she was right. The spark had been lit. Soon, it would grow into a fire the world could not ignore. Years passed, and the triplets grew into teenagers. Life was still harsh, but their small hustles kept Mama Rose alive. They were known in the market now, not as street kids, but as the hard-working triplets. But fate was about to change their story. It happened on a hot afternoon. The sun beat down mercilessly on the city, and the triplets were busy washing cars at the edge of a bustling hotel. Daniel was scrubbing a tire, sweat dripping down his face, while David cracked jokes to keep their spirits high. Diana, always the sharp-eyed one, noticed a well-dressed man step out of the hotel lobby. He wasn't ordinary. His presence commanded attention. A convoy of cars waited for him, bodyguards surrounding him like shadows. "Who's that?" Diana whispered. A bystander answered quickly, "Don't you know? That's Chief Adiwale, one of the richest businessmen in the country." The triplets froze. They had heard the name before, the man who built an empire from nothing. At that moment, as if destiny itself had arranged it, Chief Adiwale's expensive wristwatch slipped from his hand and fell onto the pavement. The crowd gasped. One man reached forward to grab it, but Daniel was faster. He picked it up carefully, walked straight to the chief, and held it out with both hands. "Sir, you dropped this." The chief looked at him curiously. Most kids in their position would have run off with the fortune in their hands. Instead, Daniel's eyes shone with honesty. Chief Adiwale smiled faintly. "What is your name, boy?" "Daniel, sir. And these are my brother David and my sister Diana." The chief studied the three of them. Something about their eyes, bright, hungry, determined, struck him. He nodded slowly. "You remind me of myself when I was your age." To everyone's shock, Chief Adiwale reached into his pocket and pulled out a wad of cash. "Here. For your honesty." But Daniel shook his head. "Thank you, sir, but we don't need gifts. What we want is a chance to learn. Teach us, and we'll never forget it." Like and subscribe for part 2, because what happens next will shock you, and comment part 2 in the comments.